What's going on, YouTube? What's going on, Facebook? Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here. I did something very interesting. I listened to Putin's entire speech of his explanation of why he was doing what he was doing. And then I watched Zelensky's speech of his response to it. And I've also watched several Zelensky speeches after that, trying to get as much information as I possibly can to really just tell you what I think, just my initial reaction. I have a whole thing of notes right here. You can see right here, I wrote a bunch of notes for Putin's speech, Zelensky's speech, and hopefully this is interesting. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I possibly can, a perspective from an American that is not just, watching clips or memes and reacting spontaneously and feeling emotional about it. I really wanted to give them both the time of day and see what I really thought, because I obviously have my own opinions and perspectives, but what better way to really get to the source than to listen to both speeches? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about some stuff beforehand. I appreciate you for being here. And I also want to say, as people are coming in real quick, one thing that's very concerning to me on either side, I'm not as familiar. It's hard to find reporting on Russia besides Russia themselves, India. Sometimes that there's not a lot of people that really report on it as much as New York Times, CNN, et cetera. It's hard to really hear certain stuff. So I'm not sure exactly what they're banning in their country, but I do know that they're banning certain things, flights, et cetera. And I know that Europe is now banning RT and Sputnik on on YouTube for Europeans, which is kind of alarming to me because that's where I heard the speech. I heard him speak on that YouTube channel. I don't know if I would have ever been able to find a translation anywhere else. They make it really hard. So, as much as I understand both sides are going to censor, both sides are going to try to push each other out. They're at war, not just physically, but I would say media wise, financially, economically. I get it. There's like a conflict going on. But, watching 2 years of COVID authoritarianism, where basically the entire mainstream media at one case on both sides, and then really just celebrities, et cetera, all of these same news, I want to say like sports leagues, rather. FIFA is now banning Russia. You have Warner, Sony, Disney. They're all piling on. And these are the same people in my own country. This is just my perspective, that said virtually nothing while we were being abused, while we were being treated like animals and prisoners and serfs, and basically being relegated to third-tier citizens for the crime of wanting to go to a gym or open your restaurant or keep your family business alive. These people were nowhere to be found for us. They were on the wrong side of history, in my opinion, over the last 2 years. They still have done virtually nothing besides distract with fake activism, et cetera, writing end racism in the end zone, acting like they're saving the world or something. So I see that same sort of pile on. It's almost like, and before I get into the real story, with COVID, they use people's fear. Well, you got to be afraid. And since you're afraid and it's scary and nobody wants to die, here's what we're going to do. And this is why we're going to justify it. I see the same sort of correlation here. I'm not saying they're the same thing, but it's like, well, there's war. It's scary. So in order to fight the scary person, we're going to start censoring more speech, funding more countries, et cetera. So I see a lot of the correlations, but that's alarming. And before I start and get into the speeches of Zelensky and Putin that I listened to personally, I wanted to say this on a side note. I found it very fascinating. In America, you guys know that we have the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. We have the Johnson & Johnson, but I don't know, that one got worse press and they took it off the market and people lost a little trust in it. Not my fault, but they tried to blame me actually for reporting on that. But anyway, we have those mRNA vaccines. That's what the Pfizer and Moderna are. It's mRNA technology. It's not something that was really being used very often, if at all, before COVID. And now it's really being pushed in American life. But long story short, our two geopolitical enemies, Russia and China, they're actually not using mRNA vaccines on their people. I just find it fascinating. I wanted to just share that before I get to the breakdown. Here is the print.in. It's an Indian news source. They're saying Sputnik makes Sputnik maker wages Twitter war over low efficacy of mRNA vaccines, says its booster could help. So they were taunting the West. And this is the New York Times from February this year. They said, in China, these vaccines have been embraced by the world. Why not in China? Beijing once said it had 2 mRNA shots within reach and ready for approval, one homemade and one produced by a foreign company. Today, neither is available. So our two geopolitical enemies, right? China and Russia. Both of them, I would say, are a major threat to America, whether you like either of them or not, or whatever. It's just true. Neither one of them are deploying mRNA vaccines. So this is my question to you. I don't like Russia or China. I'm American, but however, I like the people there, the regime, different story. Who's right? The science is settled. China's not stupid. Russia's not stupid. America, I would like to think, is not stupid because I'm American, but why didn't they give those vaccines to their people? If the science of them are so great and it's so amazing, wouldn't China and Russia want to use them? So that's my question to you. Do you think China and Russia have it more right than us? Do you think we have it more right than them? Do you think neither of them have it right? I just find that story fascinating, and most people haven't talked about that. I just find that pretty weird, especially when they're forcing it on our military. The Chinese military is not taking those ones. It's just interesting. All right, now let's get to the speeches. I'll start with Putin, and then I'll go to Zelensky. I have a lot to say about both of them. So I watched Putin's initial speech. I believe it was over 50 minutes long. It was translated on RT, which is now being blocked in Europe. So Europeans might not even have the capability of finding this speech to, even if they hate him, even if they disagree with everything. I like to read it. I read the Communist Manifesto. I think communism is a terrible idea. I think it's consolidation and centralization of power. I'm against the ideology of communism for a country. I don't think it works. However, I still read the book because I wanted to learn about it, right? That's just the kind of person I am. I don't believe what everyone else says. I want to read it. So, whether you like Putin or hate Putin, whether you like Zelensky or think you don't like him, whatever, I would think you'd want to eventually listen to the speeches, which they're making it harder and harder to find. So Putin started off his speech. He gave like a long history of Russia. He really kind of dragged it on. It was getting kind of boring. I'm not going to lie. But, Russia and Ukraine have a history that a lot of people don't know, including myself, because I don't really live there. So I only understand what I've learned. For example, if you say, when was Ukraine formed? If you just Google that, it says August 24th, 1991. That's what Google says. I understand they have a longer history, being part of Russia, not being part of Russia, but this was somewhat new, I guess, the new formation of Russia. It happened not too long ago. And Putin was kind of explaining, he's like, we share similar culture. We share similar history. They were a part of us. We did this. So, that was kind of the beginning of a speech, kind of explaining how the two countries are linked historically, which I would say Zelensky would probably agree with to some extent. He said similar things, like they are linked, but they have different visions of where they want to go. That being said, Putin was trying to explain that, when he made an agreement and Russia made an agreement with NATO, NATO promised to not expand eastward. And they said that we will not do this. And it seems like, I would say, if you really just look at it, they kind of did that. So, I understand war is not pretty. No one's perfect. Everyone has to make a move. The whole game's like a giant game of chess. So I'm not sending accusations, but that was kind of his defense, was saying, listen, we followed our agreements. And I'm not saying that he's right. This is for your interpretation. And also you can research, but this is what Putin is saying. He's saying, we did everything we were supposed to do. We followed our agreements. You did not follow your agreements. You kept moving in on us. And at a certain point, he thinks that they have a reason that they should be able to defend themselves. So he feels kind of boxed in a corner. Like, I'm not out here trying to kill everybody. He's like, I just feel like Russia and the Russian people and the Russian government has a right to defend our country from these constant threats and getting closer and closer. He also said Ukraine is corrupt, overrun with NGOs and puppets. He used the word puppet a few times. He claims, and I don't know this, maybe you guys can help me with it, but in his speech, he claims that they wanted to join the West, not like join it geographically, but I don't know if he was talking about NATO or the UN, EU. I can't really remember, but he claimed in his speech, like, I was willing to really join. Like, I don't want war. And they wouldn't allow me. They rejected me. And he seems to think, Putin, that the West and our allies have, an agenda against him, where he's like, I tried, and they just kept wanting to isolate me, didn't want to work with me, kept moving in on me. He's like, I don't know what else I could have really done, according to him. He talked about the ethnic and social things going on in Ukraine. I don't understand it. And I think, to be honest, left wingers, right wingers, Democrats, CNN, Fox News, I don't think they're fully explaining the ethnic differences. I'm going to give you an example. Like in America, you have a bunch of different ethnicities. You have Black Lives Matter really, injecting racial activism into the forefront. That doesn't really exist in other countries because depending on their racial makeup and police situation, it's all different. Like if you go to Nigeria, it's not just like, oh, everything's black. It's like, no, you have Muslims and Christians. The point I'm trying to get to is every place has their own unique social, racial, issues or non-issues that they're dealing with, or, there's a history of every place, and it's not really being reported. But, Putin and Zelensky disagree on what's going on there, but Putin tries to explain there's a region where there's a lot of Russians, and Putin was claiming that they were, at some cases, I think he even used the word, I don't know if this speech, but I heard in others, genocided. He was saying his people were being killed, Russians were being mistreated. There was a lot of, he used the word Russophobia, I believe, which is like, anti-Russian, rhetoric going on there, or a government. So he was really thoroughly, I think, to be fair, I think he did a great job of like explaining things. It didn't sound like, and I'm not even saying I fully agree with it because I don't understand it completely, but he didn't seem very like emotional. It didn't seem like he was just reading a speech. I know he was, but it didn't seem like just like a bunch of nothings that sound good. He was just like fully really laying it out, like pretty raw. So I like that because it's like whether I agree or disagree with it, I'm like, okay, well, he just told me that. It wasn't like this whole like little stunt or whatever. And he was explaining his, he mentioned, and a lot of people constantly mention that they feel like there's some sort of neo-Nazi faction in Ukraine. Zelensky, I'll get into it later, says that that's not true. I don't know. I don't live in Ukraine, but that does seem to be something Julian Assange used to talk about. Putin says, I think Jimmy Dore mentions it, left wing, some right wingers mention it. I don't live there, so I only know what I hear. I could act like I know, right? A lot of people are like, I know this. Like, do I really? I'm trying to be as honest as possible. I know what I hear. I've never been to Ukraine. I've never been to Russia. And then he went on once again, and then I'm going to get to Zelensky's speech. He basically was like, his overarching theme was, we're not the aggressors here. We're not doing this to take over the world. Like Zelensky's like, oh, this could spark this. They're doing this. I'm not saying he said he's going to take over the world, but I believe Zelensky made the comment of like, this could spark into like a huge European war. Putin was like, I'm not trying to do all that. I just want to, I want to defend Russia. I feel like we are being threatened and attacked, and this is my defense. I need to do something. I feel like I'm in the corner. That was roughly what he said. Let's get to Zelensky's speech because I have a few. First, I'm not trying to badmouth my guy because I think, honestly, to be fair, I think he's a great speaker. And I find it funny in America. I just have to say, like, they made Joe Biden seem cool enough for people to vote for. I don't really care what you think. Joe Biden is possibly the least impressive person I've ever seen. So it's like they sold Joe Biden a hot dog as if he was some sort of filet mignon and people bought it. So if you were dumb enough, no offense, to think that Joe Biden was this great speaker, then Zelensky literally is Superman. You know what I'm saying? He's young. He's been an actor, a comedian. The dude can speak. He's got presence. If you could sell the American public on Joe Biden, then I think Zelensky's way easier because he actually is a good speaker. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I'm looking at Democrat comments like, oh my God, this is the greatest speech I've ever heard. And I'm like, it's a good speech. I'm not even knocking him. He's a great speaker. But compared to Joe Biden, I mean, just watching a rock, like, 24/7 rock, live stream on YouTube, that's better than Biden. But, before I get into his main speech, this is something that I'm a little suspect of. And I'm not saying that Putin doesn't lie. And I'm not saying that he's never told a fib. I'm sure he has thousands of times. But this is a speech. I'm just going to play it and just translate it for you real quick. The whole Snake Island story was a story where the whole media, left wing, right wing, all of your favorites, left wing, right wing, they all said, oh my God, all of these people died. And this is why. It's because Zelensky told people this on the first or second day of the invasion. He said this. So here's his speech. I'm just going to translate it roughly. Sadly, today we lost 137 heroes, our citizens. 10 of them were officers. 316 people have been wounded. And then he says, defending Zemini, Snake Island, all our border guards died a heroic death. And then he follows it up and says, but they have not surrendered. They will all be awarded posthumously the title of Hero of Ukraine. So right off the jump, it's like he told the whole world that all of my border guards died and they're heroes and they're going to be remembered. And that's actually not true at all. Like, that's provably at this point not true. The Ukrainian Navy says so. The border guards say so. This idea that all the border guards died seems to be a fake story, which made it a fake story, not because CNN and Fox News are so terrible. They're terrible for different reasons. It's because the president of Ukraine, who everybody likes and trusts, literally said that. So, I mean, that's not really a great introduction. When I heard that story, I'm like, why is he lying about that? Or what, did he get bad intel? But, it's very different from the speech that Putin gave, where it wasn't like emotional or it wasn't even like recent. He's like, this is a history. This is what's going on. This is what we're doing. This is why. And he's, not getting on my good side, no offense, but telling a lie. I don't care if I love you. I want to fight for your military. Like, stop lying. Everybody's so sick of the lies. But his main speech, which was the 9-minute one I saw after Russia invaded, was definitely a great speech. I can see why people like it. He said roughly, I'm appealing to the people of Russia as a citizen of Ukraine. So if you didn't watch that speech, what's very interesting about it, Zelensky was speaking in Russian. I believe he said so, at least. I don't know the difference, but he said he was speaking in Russian. And he said he was speaking directly to Russians. So it, in some ways, was a speech to the world, but really he was trying to get to the hearts of the Russian people, because I think he understands Russia's a big country, a big power. I need to tap into the people and get the people to stop Putin. So it was a very interesting, I guess, attempt or philosophy that he had. He's like, right off within a minute of speaking, he's not like, this is to the world. He's like, this is to the Russians. I am speaking to you. And then he said, that this might start a huge war in Russia. I believe within a minute of his speech, he's talking about massive war. He said, I quote, I don't know that I could officially quote this because the translation might be slightly off, but Zelensky said, any provocation, any spark, a spark that has the potential to burn everything down. You are told that this flame will bring freedom to the people of Ukraine, but the people of Ukraine are already free. So you can see what I'm saying. He's got a great speech. You think that flame will really light the freedom, but we're already free. That flame is gonna burn Europe down. I'm not saying it's the same because he's speaking after Putin invaded. It's harder to be as calm as Putin was because Putin's like, yeah, I'm going to invade. And then he's like, but it's like within a minute, he's like, okay, we're free. We don't need your help. Be very careful, Russian citizens. I'm speaking to you. Don't ruin this. He also says, we're not Nazis. The Russians are lying. This is something that a lot of people are trying to accuse the Ukrainians of. They're saying there's a neo-Nazi faction in Ukraine. I don't know. Like, I've only heard stories. Like I said, I've heard people say that. I could pretend like I know and agree with him, but I really don't know. So Putin says there's neo-Nazis there. He says that there's not. I know Jimmy Dore says that there are. I want to say that probably certain right-wingers say that. I don't know who, but, he's trying to defend himself. That's not who we are. And he goes on to say, like, we're not hurting, Putin saying we're hurting the people of Donbass and other reasons. We're not doing that. He has a very powerful speech where he's just like, listen, my family's from there. I drink with these people. Like, I see why people like the guy. If you like Joe Biden, this guy's like, even like a lot of Republican politicians, this guy's young actor, comedian. Like, he's really hitting the hearts of people because, these other people are total goofballs. Like, this guy could actually talk. But he goes on this whole speech to say, they're lying, not us. I'm not hurting anybody. I like the people there. We hang out. I do press tours there, etc. He says, we want peace. He really reiterated at the end of his speech, Zelensky said, Ukraine is not a threat to Russia. He was saying, we want security, you want security. So it sounded like he wanted to work with Russia. It sounded like, I get that you want security with NATO and we want security guarantees as well. It sounded pretty fair. Then he went on, it was pretty interesting at the end. He kind of made a call to influencers. Like, I believe he even said TikTokers, journalists, like normal people. He was kind of saying, people don't want war. The people of Ukraine don't want war. The people of the world don't want war. The people of Russia don't want war. And then he was like, TikTokers, people, journalists, like basically like, yo, tell the truth, be on my side, help us out because I know we're going to need, influencers, I guess. So it's an interesting speech. I guess it's harder to really compare. I would say Putin's was a longer speech, 50 minutes, so he had a lot more in it. Zelensky's was a shorter speech. I don't get to hear that much from Putin. As far as that speech was even hard to find. It's not like I get to hear updates from him as much as I do Zelensky. For instance, I'm going to play this real quick. This is a CNN piece real quick. This is the headline today, March 1st. It says, Zelensky's powerful speech causes translator to choke up. So I'm going to just play this real quick. This is, I might play it in 2 times just so I don't waste your time a little faster. But apparently his speech was so powerful today that, the translator choked up and CNN just loves it. Let's hear. This is President Zelensky in front of the European Parliament. Let's take a quick listen.
It's a very tragic one for us.
All right, maybe I won't do it in full time. It's a little too fast. I don't know. I thought it would save some time, but it's like, it sounds like a turkey. It's like, let's not do that. All right.
2 cruise missiles hit Kharkiv, the city which is located to the borders of the Russian Federation. There were always many Russians there, and they're always friendly. There were warm relations there. More than 20 universities are there. It's the city that has the largest number of universities in our country. The youth is bright, smart there.
So I'm going to pause it real quick. Zelensky's really good at like emotional, he's always like, there's children, he's like, there's kids there, there's universities. Like, he's really good at getting people on his side with the emotion. And I have to say this too. I'm not trying to be a sexist. This is nonsense. It's like men and women, they're both amazing. They both make love and make children. It's a great thing. But in general, it's like men. I mean, can you say this? Is this like a bannable? They're better at basketball on average. Not every guy's better at basketball, but the NBA is much more talented than the WNBA. Sorry. I'm noticing that on average, once again, not all, but some, on average, women are getting way more sucked into this war propaganda, in my opinion, because it's like they're super emotional. They like a good hero story. There's a woman holding a gun. There's a woman with a kid. I'm noticing in my following, maybe I just follow too much women or something. My bad. But in general, I'm noticing that like a lot of men are starting to be like, I don't like Russia, but I want to know what's going on. I like Ukraine, but I want to, and I see like women just bam, bam, not all. I know there's like thousands of women here that are like, not me, I get it. I'm not falling for it, but I do kind of notice that. And if you look at voting patterns, like women vote way more Democrat than men. I mean, maybe that's the right answer and I'm so stupid or something, but I think it tends to be like emotion. If you listen to, real quick, and I'll play the speech again, if you listen to a right winger and a left winger, I actually am disgusted by the Republican Party. I think they're fake. I think this COVID and Ukraine situation has exposed them. They're all, in my opinion, mostly like puppets, and they do just enough to get by, but not enough. I don't even like the Republican Party. But if you took like the Republican Party platform, the Democratic platform, in my opinion, the Republican Party platform appeals to men more because it's like logical. There's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're not really going to do it, but we'll do like half of it. And the Democrats, it's like, racism, sexism, xenophobia, children dying, kids in cages, and then they get in office and do not, it's like, so I'm not saying that women are wrong. I'm just saying women have good hearts. They're great at a lot of things. I think women in some cases are even better than men. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm a sexist. I'm trying to get laid and tell women they're better than me. I'm just saying like women create life. It's an amazing thing. Women are not worse than men in any way. They're just different and they come together and it's a beautiful thing. But I'm just saying like emotionally, they have this like heart for children, family, etc. They got this caretaker energy inside them. So it just seems like politically that they're always like, getting tricked. Not all, obviously there's millions to tens of millions of women that are amazing. I'm sure there's thousands of women that are, smarter and more logical than me somewhere out there. Not many. No, I'm just kidding. But you get what I'm saying? I'm just noticing the pattern of like, wow, like people are really getting knee deep in this narrative where before I play the clip again, I'm not like they're like, oh my God, he's pushing Russian. I'm like, look at what I've done. I've only told the truth about what I know, make an opinion, back up. Like I was right about the Snake Island story weeks before the mainstream media. I'm not saying weeks. I'm sorry. That's wrong. Days. I got my time frame wrong. But like 3 days ago, 4 days, I'm like, this, I could already be like, Ukrainian border guards are saying that this isn't true. No one reported it until the Ukrainian Navy did it. So it's like they let this huge story just dole out. So in general, let's listen to more of his speech. But I'm not like one side or the other. I'm trying to really play an even keel. I'm an American. I don't trust my media. Joe Biden is a glorified potato vegetable. And, I watched us get dragged into the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, the Syria war. I thought bin Laden was going to do something. Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi. I mean, we've been pulled all over the place. Opium fields. Like, it's like, what, I've been spun around a million times in the last 20 years. So I'm not saying like I'm for Russia or I think Putin's great or I think he's horrible or, Zelensky's my hero or he's evil. I'm just being honest. Like I've been pulled in a million different directions in 20 years. Almost every time we've been duped and lied to. So I can't in good conscience just run and act like Zelensky's Aquaman. It just doesn't feel right. And in the same thing, I'm not going to turn and say like Putin's Aquaman because to be honest, something about this whole thing doesn't feel right to me. So, it's like Trump. Like, would I vote for Trump over Biden? Yes. Do I like Trump? To be honest, I used to 2 years ago. I love Trump. I got Trump ice cubes. Now, I really don't like Trump. I don't really respect him as an American or a man. I'm just being honest. I find him to be, when push came to shove, he was on the wrong side of history. He went on a Pfizer Moderna sales tour, did bottom tier amount for our people, our culture. I feel like he's like just the kind of a phony. However, I still like him more than Biden. But I'm a Trump puppet or something. I feel the same thing with Putin. It's like, I don't think Putin's my best friend, but like, is Putin or Angela Merkel? It's like, do I have to choose? Because it's not going to be who you want. It's like you give me these two options. You're like, do you want, Rachel Levine or Vladimir Putin? It's like, am I supposed to say Rachel Levine because I'm an American? Because it's like, who do I think's a better leader? Who do I think's a better speaker? Do you really want to hear my answer? Because it's not, I don't know what else to say. I could lie and be like, yeah, Joe Biden's a better speaker than Vladimir Putin. I'm not saying I like Putin more than Biden, but I'm just saying like Biden is a clown. Like you can't pay me enough money to tell you that he's like a great speaker. And like, it's like, so I don't that's kind of where I stand. I'm not picking sides. These are not my idols. I don't think they're going to save the free world. I just don't think the media is telling the truth, and people are getting way too emotional, including lots of men. I'm not trying to single out women. I'm just saying I see that pattern where they love to tap into like a good mom story where you're like, oh, that sounds like my family. And it's like, that's the point. All right, let's listen to Zelensky's powerful speech that caused translators to choke up, according to CNN, which is true because you could hear him choking up. Maybe he just ate a hot dog or something. He just choked, and people are like, oh my God, it's so powerful. And it's like, he's just eating and Nathan's on the job. No, I'm just kidding. He probably was crying, but whatever.
The people who gathered there all the time and was gathering there all the time for celebrating all of celebrations at the largest square in our country, the Freedom Square. And this is the largest square in Europe, and that's true. This is called the Freedom Square. Can you imagine this morning, 2 cruise missiles hit this Freedom Square, dozens of killed ones. This is the
real quick. So 2 missiles hit Freedom Square, dozens killed. I want to be on this guy's side. I don't like cruise missiles. I don't want Ukrainians dead. I love Ukrainians, especially Ukrainian women. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, jokes aside, I don't like that. But here's the thing. I have a video of him literally lying about something similar just a couple of days ago. If New York Times and CNN reported something wrong, said, hey, we were wrong, we made a mistake, we won't do, they don't do that in America. When a Democrat politician lies or gets caught being a hypocrite, they never apologize. They never say sorry. It takes like Whoopi Goldberg talking about, the wrong group of people to get in timeout or something. But in general, most of the time, it's like they don't even care. So I want to believe what he's saying, because it's like, I don't want Putin to be killing Ukrainians. I'd be like, I'll put a Ukrainian flag in my profile picture. I'll do it. If you show me that it's true and you promise not to lie to me, I'll put a Ukrainian flag in my profile picture. I'll wear a Ukrainian flag on my shirt like Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader who for some reason has a foreign country on his shirt instead of our flag. I'll do it. I promise. I'll march in the street. I'll go and work for the NFL for free. Give me a paint machine and I'll write "end racism" on the sidelines. And as soon as I write that, as soon as the M gets, fully carved, "end racism," once that M is in the grass, it's going to disappear completely. That's how serious of an activist I am. Like, once I write it on the ground, it's like, whoa, did the KKK just evaporate? Oh my gosh, the Black Panthers are sitting with, the white nationalists in a circle, and they're singing Kumbaya, and they're like, why do we even care about race, bro? I mean, it doesn't even matter. We all bleed red blood. They're like, that's true. It's like, I promise you, I'll take it to that level. I'll create world peace. I'll get Putin, Zelensky in a circle with Joe Rogan and Sean King, and you know what I'm saying? We'll maybe dabble in psychedelics. I'm not saying to do that. It's not right. I'm just saying hypothetically, maybe that would be what works for that, strange group of bedfellows or characters. I heard the word bedfellows recently. I don't remember where, but it's just such a funny word. I'll go the distance for the world. But the point I'm getting to is, I just want to know that you're telling the truth. If you could prove to me that these cruise missiles hit, I'll be like, yeah. And I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm just going to read a speech of him from February 24th, which is a week ago. He said, sadly, today we lost 137 heroes, our citizens. 10 of them were officers. 316 people were wounded. That's horrible. Then he went on to say, defending the Snake Island, all of our border guards died a heroic death. That's terrible. The only problem is it actually is not true. Even the Ukrainian Navy is saying none of them died. So how do you get that wrong? Like, oh, they're dead. They died. It's not just like, hey, we think they're dead. They might be alive. We don't have intel. People are like, you don't understand. Like, we can't contact them. We're scared. We think they might be alive, but they might be dead. He's just like, they're dead. They're heroes. We're going to throw. It's like, dude, he's a liar. I'm sorry. I don't trust the dude at all. At least apologize and say, hey, but we're going to ban RT. We're going to ban Sputnik. We're going to call everybody Russian propagandists who disagree in the media. Disney's gone, SWIFT, sanctions, and anybody who disagrees. It's the same script as the COVID thing. I never said COVID didn't exist. I never said a vaccine is the, enemy of the world. I'm just like, I'm looking at the data, and You're telling me that locking kids down, taking away their sports and making them fatter is somehow going to fight a coronavirus. And my common sense was like, if you could mandate a lockdown and make kids fatter, why can't you mandate jumping jacks? Sound an alarm that sounds like a Russian, you know what I'm saying? We all do jumping jacks. I worked out this morning. I ran a mile on a treadmill and worked out. You're not on my level. You know, and then you got Bill Gates looking like a sloppy sardine coming out of the can, you know, telling everybody about health as he's profiting billions. And I'm some sort of crazy guy. You can't talk about William Gates like that. It's a conspiracy theory to say that a billionaire is not perfect. They're all amazing and they care about you, except for Elon Musk. He's a white supremacist Nazi. Except for Donald Trump. It's like, so how you can only hate billionaires you hate. But if I say I don't agree with one billionaire, I'm the bad. It's like, who believes this stuff? I just don't understand. But you get what I'm saying? It just seems like the same script to me. I don't like Putin. I don't like Zelensky. Honestly, I don't. I just want to be told the truth. You're not gonna, it's like I have like 50 books here, right? I have a bookshelf. I read sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I play video games. I'm a loser. Anyway, I want to know what's going on. You can't just burn my books and be like, that's the truth, you know? You burn my Where the Sidewalk Ends Shel Silverstein book. That's an anti-Semitic hate crime. And me, Pompeo, Trump, we're going to be on it. But in general, I love that book, you know, and he's a Jewish author. So that would possibly make it a hate crime. And potentially in some countries, you might go to jail for that. But in general, I wouldn't want to do that to you. But I'm just saying, don't come burning my books talking about, I got the best. Let me hear Putin. Let me hear Zelensky. And then let me make a decision for myself. My decision is this. I don't like either of them. Zelensky is the most fascinating person to me in history because he made a production company, created a show where he was the president of the United States, and then really kind of just psyoped everybody into thinking he was already the president of the United States, and then ran for the president of the United States and won. It's the greatest story ever. He's a genius. But in general, I'm American. I don't know. You guys already lied me into Afghanistan, lied me into Iraq. I mean, I didn't go. You know, I sat there and just ate Fritos like an idiot and just, you know, cheered when Fox News or CNN told me to. But in general, I wasn't that tough. But, you know, our country went to war. I was in college, you know, jerking around, making mistakes, having fun, dropping out, learning the lessons of life. But how many times has this happened already? Like Russia, Ukraine, they have a crazy history. Google says that, you know, Ukraine was just, you know, founded in the last 20, 30 years. That's what Google says. I didn't say it. Google said it. So I don't know. Is it right? They're fighting. There's neo-Nazis there. There's not neo-Nazis there. Putin's back. What you guys figure it out? You know, the big boys come to the table. I don't want our country going to war. I don't want to send taxpayer dollars to Ukraine. Sorry. I don't want to send taxpayer dollars to Russia. You guys got your own money. You guys got gas, cool hats. You know, sell your Russian hats. They'll sell like hotcakes. I kind of want one too. They look fly. You know, when it's cold outside, you look like a Don Dada. You know, you get what I'm saying with the fur. Ukraine's on Twitter like asking for Bitcoin money. I'm like, are people literally going to fund this war with Bitcoin money? Like, is that where we're at now? Everyone's like, we're going to die. I'm like, we're not going to die. We're just stupid. Like, it's not that bad. I'm not saying it's not bad. War's bad, but it's like, everyone's like, World War III, dude, you say that every day. Every day is World War III. Dude. You said it 3 years ago, North Korea is going to blow us up. It's ISIS. It's Kim Jong-un. It's like, just get over it. We'll be fine. I hope. But you got like literally a verified Ukraine Twitter thing being like, send me Bitcoin. And I'm just like, are people going to fund a war in Bitcoin? It's hilarious. And also just weird. I don't know. Imagine, and can I talk about the Rothschilds without being canceled? Can I make like a funny banking joke? I don't even know anymore. Are we being anti-Semitic and lying about the history of the Rothschilds, acting like they never did anything? To me, that's more anti-Semitic than just talking about the Rothschilds. You mentioned Rothschilds like Nick Cannon. He's on a do-rag, apologized to rabbi tour for 3 weeks, reading Barry Weiss books and doing book reports. I don't apologize like that. I mean, because I'm just hilarious. I don't say anything mean. But in general, it's like, it's almost more anti-Semitic not to talk about the Rothschilds to some extent, because it's like, it's like acting like George Washington never existed or something. You're like, remember Hank Aaron, the baseball player? You're like, no, that's anti-black to say that. It's like, no, he literally hit home runs. You're like, No, he didn't do that. No, don't talk about. It's like just admit he hit home runs. Like no. I don't think that. It's like it's almost more hateful to not talk about them. But in general, I was gonna make like a banking war joke. Probably not the best thing for now, but it's like imagine you just fast forward 150 years. You know what I'm saying? You're one of these like financiers, like Rockefeller types, or like I don't know, whatever. And you're like, dude, we don't even have to like fund the war anymore. We just these people will do it on Twitter from a Bitcoin account. They're literally like funding the war themselves. They're like crowdfunding a war. You got Democrats and liberals like begging for white people in Ukraine to have AK-47s. I'm like, my red flag alarm couldn't be possibly going off more. People are like, Anomaly, you don't understand. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm not trying to yell at you. I just think it's funny. He's like, you don't understand. Oh yeah, I don't understand. Whatever. Yeah, I'm not acting like I know everything. Oh yeah, the whole world. I have it all in my head. No, I'm just saying it's like you don't understand. You got Dan Crenshaw and Occupy Democrats agreeing on something. My red flag alarm sounding like a Kyiv, bomb alert. I'm like, what? Dan Crenshaw and Occupy Democrats agree on something? This is not good. People are like, this is unity. It's like, yeah, this is about as unity as like every state locked down for 15 days. Yay, we're all united. We're all locked down. Yay, we're equal now. Yay, black, white, Asian, Latino, Hispanic, Texas, Florida, America. We're all under lockdown. We made it. We're equal. We did it. We're all the same now. We all can't go to a restaurant or else the police will arrest us. I had those type of vibes going off in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, they both agree. And then you got CNN agreeing with Fox News and Newsmax and like MSNBC. It's like, that's a red flag. Then you got this guy lying about Snake Island. That's a red flag. They're using old pictures of him. That's a red flag. The ghost of Kyiv sounds like Jussie Smollett on a stroll in Chicago getting a Subway sandwich. That's a red flag. We were like, I don't like for 2 days. I didn't even say it was fake because I'm not going to say it's fake and be wrong. I'm just like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. And people were like, no, you're a bad person. And then it comes out that like, the Snake Island story is not true. I was like one of the first ones to report on it. Not the first, but one of the first ones. And people were like, yeah, but who cares if it's fake? It's like, okay, then what's the like? Yeah, I like Ukraine. So there's this, the fish of Kyiv. The fish of Kyiv is a man who is a fish. He's 100 feet long. I mean, let's just say he's a Loch Ness monster, but he's also a Ukrainian citizen. He's been swimming in the ocean, taking down Russian warships. I think he's taken down 420. And because you got to be high in order to believe that. Like, I'm just saying, it's like, I'm not supposed to see a red flag there. Kevin McCarthy wearing a foreign pin on his shirt. He's got the Ukrainian flag. It's like, are you ever going to care about America, dude? Ever? Are you ever going to prioritize our country? No, never. Okay. I don't know. I had more to say, but I probably should just stop. I appreciate y'all. I want to say this real quick. Overall, this is my synopsis of both speeches. I think that, Trump was funny and a good speaker. Biden is like a clown. Like if you put Biden on a television show, would anybody watch? This is my stress test to tell people how bad Joe Biden is. Like, imagine him doing any job. I've said this before, but like, be creative. Give me any job. I don't know, waiter. I don't think Biden could do it. Like valet service. I think he crashes my car. Window cleaner. I don't think he has the physical capability. Certainly not an athlete. He's too old. Dry cleaning service. Like, I don't think he could get the job done. Plumber. Of course not. Anything like impressive with your hands that actually takes like skill. Not happening. What's a job that's like, I don't know, like McDonald's employee. He's messing up too much. What's like I'm trying to think of like, I don't know, like a library assistant who just sits there and checks people in. I think he is useless. Security guard, obviously not. Like name one job that Joe Biden can do outside of the president. Like do you think of one job and be like, no, I would feel good about him doing that. Like a dummy or something, like, it's like, it's cheaper to pay him than to build a dummy. So you just have him like take naps in like a security thing and people think there's a real person, but he's just like passed out, but it's like the shadow because the lighting's bad. So you think it's like some jack dude, but it's just Biden sleeping there. I can't think of a single job he can even do. I forget why I was even talking about that. I had something important to say, but yeah, I guess like I'm going to listen to a State of the Union speech today. By the way, I'm going to do a reaction right after it. So tune into that. I think it's 6 Western, 9 Eastern time. I'm going to watch his State of the Union speech and take notes and do a reaction to that too. But like you listen to Biden speak, he's like a Oscar Mayer wiener hot dog that's been left in the sun for 5 years, and then someone threw it in the refrigerator, chopped it up, and like mixed it up with like urine. Like that's what I think of him. So if you listen to Zelensky, yeah, that's filet mignon compared to Joe Biden. So people are like, you got these Democrats who are like masking their children. They're on like 3 or 4 booster shots. You give them Zelensky, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to them. Like this is like Stormy Daniels meets like Michael Avenatti. Like they're having like, I'm not trying to be disgusting, but they're having like full-blown orgasms just watching CNN being like, Zelensky, it's like, yeah, like compared to Whoopi Goldberg and I don't know, like Adam Schiff. Yeah, these people look like literal superheroes. There's people comparing, he looks like the Archer from Marvel Hero Comics. It's like compared to Biden, yeah, I get why you're so excited. Like this is the first like human that's not a total oblivious moron. Even like SNL is not funny. Like, is it supposed to be funny? Of course. Is it? No. People have had no entertainment for 2 years. Like, oh my God, a 40-something-year-old guy who's like speaks well. This is it, folks. We thought we had Stormy Daniels for governor. She screwed up. Michael Avenatti got bopped. You know, Pete Buttigieg got shoved out of the way by Joe Biden because it was like, my turn, little guy. And he's like, okay, geez. He's like, just put me in charge of, you know, vehicles or something, and I'll do my best. Someone said Walmart greeter. I wouldn't like him there either. That's, you know, it's, you know, I don't think Joe Biden would be a good Walmart greeter, but that he could, as long as he didn't fall asleep, he might be able to pass it. Chris said, my recent video, I have a clip beginning someone from Ukraine admitting Fox, we fight for the new world order. Yeah, I shared that. That was a Ukrainian parliament member. She was like, not only are we fighting for Ukraine, but we are fighting for the new world order. And I was like, don't say that, lady. It doesn't mean what you think it means translated to America. So I heard that video. She's a parliament member in Ukraine. It's like, have you never watched Infowars.com? You can't just say that on live TV on Fox News. It's like, you see how they're making her look cool on Fox News too? That she's like holding a gun. They're like, you know, brainwashing the left wing and the right wing. It's like, oh, and then she's just like, I'm like, don't say New World Order. I know what you meant, but don't say it. Someone said Biden would make a good leader for an evil cult. I don't even think he's smart enough. Usually evil cult members are like not good people, but enough to like gain enough attention. I mean, he was using this idea like, 6 feet to slow the spread. You know, like he had no audience during the election and they're like sitting in circles, you know what I'm saying? Like 50 feet away. There's like 5 people watching Biden speak. What a perfect excuse for a guy who probably couldn't pull a crowd. Anyway, it's like, I'd have 100,000. I'd pack out, you know, the SoFi Stadium in Inglewood if I could. It's just COVID, you know, it's like the perfect excuse. Like, he's like, dude, it's crazy. It would have been like Woodstock Part 3. You would have thought you were in 1969 at a rock festival. It's just, I can't do it because of COVID. So I have to just put like 3 journalists with like a face shield on in a circle. And people were like, no, that's legit. I'm like, I don't know. Now that it's all over, is he going to do a speech with more than 30 people there? I don't know if he could. So I don't know if he could be a cult leader because I don't know if he has enough clout like that. But overall, I got way sidetracked. I'm glad I did. I would totally do it again. Overall, I think Putin's speech, I listened to it for 50 minutes. What I liked about it was I think it wasn't like super emotional or like just using big words that sound like it could be a Disney movie. It was just like, here's what the history is in my perspective. Here's the history of Russia. Here's what NATO did. Here's what happened. Here's why I'm responding. You know, whether I agree with them or not, I found that to be like not annoying. Like, you listen to certain politicians speak, it's this big virtue signal. They're like, 50 years ago and fourscore today, Rosa Parks sat on a. I'm like, you're selling Pfizer shots. Like, why are you comparing yourself to Rosa Parks? You know what I'm saying? They do this like glorified. They're like, you know, Harry Tubman didn't go all that way to not get her booster shot, and you're like, what? You're like, are you trying to say Harry Tubman went on a booster shot? Like, I'm surprised you wouldn't get canceled for saying that. I'm just joking, but seriously, it's like, I'm like it's like such a thing where you're like, just tell me what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Tell me what you're doing. Be honest about it. I'll like it or I'll not. It's always some big thing. They're like, George Washington would have crossed the Delaware River. He didn't fight, Britain to not get a Moderna injection. And you're like, what? But anyway, Putin was just like explaining how he felt. So I'm like, okay, I don't know the history of Russia. I don't know the full history of NATO. I definitely know a little. I definitely know America tends to encroach and lie about it. But in general, I was like, okay, at least it's easy to listen to where it's like, okay, he's like well-spoken, explains it. Zelensky also really well-spoken, really smart guy. I mean, he made some good points. It's not like he didn't say anything. He did make some good points. He rebutted Putin and said, this is really what happened. Great speaker. I get why grandmas who watch CNN like him and, a lot of Republican women, etc. But in general, it's like he definitely appeals to emotion a little more and uses like, oh my God, all my border guys died. And it's like, oh my God. And it's like, oh, it didn't happen. And then it's like, people are getting killed. And it's like, I believe you, but at the same time, I don't believe you as much as I want to, because you still haven't. I mean, at least I haven't seen it being like, hey, I messed up. I lied about that. Here's why I lied. Here's what happened. Here's the miscommunication. Maybe he's done that, and I haven't seen it. I'll look out for it. But it's like, if I already catch you lying in war, like, then it's like, I haven't really seen videos of Putin to know if he's lying or not, because I haven't seen like recent ones of him. I've only seen the older one. I'll check them out, but. I think Zelensky's a great speaker, made a lot of honest statements, but at the same time, does seem like he's very good at knowing how television works. And I'm not surprised, because he's been in television for a long time. He ran his own production company, and he basically manifested his presidency by creating a show and making himself the star of it as the average guy turned politician. So I would say that makes me a little skeptical anyway. It's like, anybody that's a good actor, and that's not to say an actor can't be president. I know Ronald Reagan was president. A lot of Republicans like him. I still think, honestly, it's bad to idolize Ronald Reagan, because I think he made some pretty huge mistakes, including the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which really messed up America. But when you idolize Ronald Reagan, nobody wants to talk about it. You idolize Trump, nobody wants to talk about it. You idolize Zelensky or Putin. This idolization of politicians is a huge problem, because people want to be like, they were so great. And it's like, they sold you on the idea that they were speaking great, but then they ended up not really following through on important issues. I'm not saying I would do a perfect job. I'm not saying nobody makes mistakes, but, I think that I am skeptical. Like, whenever somebody is an actor, it's not to say they shouldn't be president or couldn't be, but you have to understand what acting is. Acting, like, I don't act. I mean, I'm funny. I like to make jokes. The more I do this, the better I get, because it's more natural. I act like I'm just hanging out with my friends, rather than when I started 3 years ago. I'm a little uptight. I'm getting better at it. But I'm not acting like, this is really what I think. This is really who I am. This is not a game. I've never acted. I think I could probably do it. You know what I'm saying? A few lines to be like an extra in like a Rob Schneider movie. By the way, Rob, if you watch my channel, please put me in a movie. That would be epic, like an Adam Sandler movie. But anyway, it's like, I don't, it's a whole different craft to pretend that you're somebody. Like, when you're the Joker, right? Joaquin Phoenix, or whatever that guy's name from Brokeback Mountain, Heath Ledger, who passed away. It's like you're being someone else. That's your whole craft. It's like, I'm going to study and learn how to lie. That's really what it is. Like, I'm going to be someone I'm not. I'm going to convince millions of people that I am somebody that I'm literally not. I am going to take. So these people have expert experience in literally just like deceiving, right? Oh my God, did you see Iron Man? He's not really Iron Man. It's special effects, and Robert Downey's a good actor. Leonardo DiCaprio, he wasn't really on the Titanic. He never went. He wasn't alive then. It's a movie. He's a good actor. You know what I'm saying? The Wolf of Wall Street. He's not the Wolf of Wall Street. He's, in fact, nothing like him, but he's good at pretending he is. So, that is kind of what you do as an actor. You pretend to be somebody that you're not. And then when you're an actor who plays the president of the United States, you've already built your image in that show, whether he meant to or not. I would assume that before he ran for that show, he had the idea, I'm going to be president. Well, what type of president do I want to be? I want to be the normal guy who becomes president. Isn't that the president that everybody likes? Well, I'm not a puppet. I'm not, Trump really ran on the same sort of thing. He's like, I'm just like you. He was a billionaire. To be honest, he ran on the policy of, I'm not going to take money. He took money. He took money from Pfizer for his inauguration. He took money from Bank of America, Dow. Trump actually lied to us. He told us he wasn't going to take anybody's money. And then he did take people's money, millions of dollars. And then he caved, I believe, morally, because that's what happens. If I'm doing my show and I'm doing it, I could say whatever I want. If I take $1 million or $2 million from a company, even if I have a lot of money, they don't just give you the money for free. It's a deal, right? If you ever see me sell a product, either I own it or they're paying me. I'm just being honest. I mean, sometimes I have certain things that I'm like, oh, I'm just drinking this and it's spontaneous, but yeah, I'm not out like shilling people's products for free. And I'm not saying that I would shill anything I don't like. I'm just being honest. It's like, the money does something. It's like, there's financial incentive in everything. So with politicians, they're good at pretending. And I think somebody that created his own narrative, it's like, here's who I am. Here's it on television. I'm the normal guy who becomes president. 3 years of that, hey, I'm running for president. I'm that normal guy from TV. You remember me? Like, it's masterful. It's genius. But, in general, it's like I'm skeptical of him because of that. And in general, I'm skeptical of Putin because he's Vladimir Putin. He's a Russian dude, KGB, that whole thing. Like, not somebody that you want to be your best friend, unless you're from Russia, I guess. But, for the West and America, I don't think Putin likes America. I don't think he really cares. And I think he doesn't pretend that he cares that much. He's like, I like my people. I'm trying to do what's right for me. But, I thought they were both interesting to listen to. And I guess the last thing I'll say is something that I found very interesting over all my research is the 14 or 15, but one of those years they had an insurrection, okay, in Ukraine. And this is like a huge part of the story that a lot of people aren't talking about. And once again, insurrections, revolutions in other countries, I can't really tell you who won and if that's good or bad for who or who. I don't know. But in America on January 6th, there was an insurrection. I say that in quotes because I don't think that was a great day. I don't agree with what happened at all. However, I don't think it was this huge plot to overthrow the government like they're claiming. I think it was like a couple hundred people, role-playing activists, trying to be funny, taking selfies, and a few idiots who acted like they were doing something and they got in trouble. But overall, I don't think it was this huge thing like the Revolution of Dignity, which was in Ukraine, where 125 plus, I think 130 people died. Dozens of police officers or military, I don't remember, but civilians. I mean, over 100 people died. We're not talking about January 6th. Compared to January 6th, that was nothing compared to what happened in Ukraine. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it was a great day and people did the right thing. I'm just saying it wasn't like this full-blown really attack. It was like a goofy, crappy way to end Trump's presidency and get everybody in trouble. However, when you research the Revolution of Dignity, which was a really real insurrection of massive magnitude compared to January 6th, where over 100 people died, it gets amazing press on Wikipedia. I mean, put January 6th in Wikipedia and then the Revolution of Dignity, and you tell me which one gets better press. So I find it very fascinating that Western media, Wikipedia, etc., is just loving this insurrection. I'm like, I thought we hated insurrections. I don't like invading. I don't want Russia to invade Ukraine. I don't want people to do insurrections. I'm with you. Yeah, that's bad. But they support this all over the world all the time. They're like, Israel's bombing Syria. Somalia's getting bombed by America. There's different things going on all over the world. And I'm not trying to say who's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's all happening. But the second that someone else does it, now we need to get in charge. It's like, it just doesn't seem, I could pretend like, yeah, I love my country. I really do. But I could pretend like I'm like, hoorah, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, wait a second, because, I think even as myself, as a country, we want to act right. We want to be righteous. We want to be moral. We might have to make some tough decisions. That's not good for everybody. I would support that as an American if it was, in my opinion, the right thing to do. But I feel like we're doing a lot of bad things that are bad for the world, bad for our country, bad for our people. Things like the Afghanistan war, I don't think we're better off in the world. Things like the COVID lockdown, I don't think we're any better. It's not like I'm a bad person. Like, I don't support my country. I'm like, no, we're hurting our country economically, physically. Like, this is all bad in my opinion. So, you start to see stuff like that and you're like, why would the media support this massive revolution in a foreign country that's a real huge insurrection, enormous? I mean, 100 times or so bigger than the one I'm not going to say in scale, but I would say in deaths. I mean, depending how you calculate the deaths on January 6th, 130 in Ukraine is more. And this is like some sort of great thing that our media loves. So it's like, this is kind of how I see it in America. Like, for an example, if Trump got into office, and me, I'm consistent. Like, I don't want to see a violent revolution in this country. I think it would go bad for everybody. It would be bad, whether it was Trump, Biden, reversing. That's all bad. I disagree with all that. But I think because Trump's people were involved, the media is trying to make it look a million times worse than it really was. Was it great? No. Was it like amazing? No. But was it as bad as they're trying to say? I don't really think so. Now, if they did that, the reverse side where, Trump won in this thing, I mean, it really kind of already happened, not to that extent, but you had people going crazy when Trump won in 2016. You had people burning stuff down and they barely covered it and didn't really care. So I think if you had a January 6th that went the other way in favor of Democrats, where hundreds of people died like they did in Ukraine in the Revolution of Dignity, I think it would get that same type of press. They'd be like, this is a righteous movement. It's like the George Floyd riots. It wasn't so much political as it was social. But I mean, billions of dollars of property damage was done. Multiple people died. I mean, in my perspective, that was worse than January 6th. That's just my opinion. In carnage, etc., and on regular people. I mean, it was terrible in multiple different cities. I mean, you saw the type of press that got. It was like, oh, it's mostly peaceful, it's righteous. And then you had all of these virtue signaling, kicking Russia out of stuff. You had all these sports leagues and all these media companies. They amplified the message of the people who were burning stuff. They didn't say, don't do that. That's horrible, but we're going to do something. They just said, right on cue, we're pretty much with you. Some people are getting bailed out. They're getting supported. We're just going to give you billions of dollars of free advertisements to the sports league. I mean, pretty much that's a green light to anybody who did anything during those riots to be like, yo, you're the good guys. Anybody who disagrees with you is a racist or whatever. So the inconsistencies there, that's the one thing that really sticks out to me in Ukraine. It's like, why did that revolution get such amazing press? And would we ever get that same sort of press here? Of course not. And I don't think they should, but I guess that's the history of the world. We had a revolution in 1776. Many countries have had revolutions later. Israel, Palestine, that's a newer conflict. So, this idea of like moral high ground, where do you draw the line? I don't know the answer. And I think I'll leave on that. This is like a humble humility ending, for this whole thing. Is like, to be honest, if you look at 1700, 1800, 1900, 1950, 2000, the maps have never stayed the same, okay? Not in Israel, not in Palestine, not in America. If you go back far enough, not in Russia, not in Europe. The maps have never stayed the same over the course of time. I'm not saying people are right or wrong because, like I said, I'm not trying to draw the moral high ground here, but this idea that we were fed that, like, this is what it is, it's going to stay this way forever, and anybody who disagrees is a racist, sexist, xenophobe, it's like, it's not true. China's plotting, Russia's plotting, America's plotting, NATO's plotting, Israel's plotting, Saudi Arabia is plotting. Everybody's plotting some sort of thing. So the best thing, in my opinion, whether you're left wing or right wing, like Zelensky or Putin, or don't like them, whatever, would be really just be honest with yourself. Like, as they're trying to downplay what's going on in the world, like, there still is a lot of plotting, a lot of corruption, a lot of war in places that you can't see, a lot of war in places that you can go visit, but you don't want to, like the south side of Chicago or certain areas of St. Louis. I mean, look at the death toll of some of there. I have a question for you guys, and I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like, if I gave you the option, would you rather go to a city in Ukraine right now, or would you rather get a Airbnb on the south side of Chicago next to two gangbangers? Which one, where would you want to go? A lot of people here, you could call it what you want, would choose to go to Ukraine, even though they're at war, because they'd probably feel safer there than in certain neighborhoods that are having 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people die every weekend, like on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and nobody talks about it. So, I mean, we have our own issues here, and you could say, a lot of rappers call Chicago Chirac. That's very popular in hip hop. They say it's Chirac. I'm from Chirac. Everybody says it. That's because it's like Iraq. You get it? Chirac, Chicago, Iraq. They're like, we're at war. It's not a racist or right-wing thing to say. It's like, everybody knows, like, it's like a war zone there. So, we have our own war zones in America. They're just not covered because there's no political angle to be covered. It's a majority black neighborhood, so they don't have an anti-white or an anti-cop angle, so it's not interesting to them. It's a Democrat-run city, so there's no political angle to that, to benefiting Democrats who really control a lot of the social narrative. So they just sweep that under the rug and tell people, Black Lives Matter. We'll do all this stuff over one situation that we caught on camera, and then we're going to ignore thousands upon tens of thousands of deaths and other things. Diabetes and heart disease is not glorified, even though I'm sure it's a bigger killer in the black community and the white community. These things we could agree on, like opioids and fentanyl. And if you want to talk about the modern day or the ancient day, I don't want to say ancient, but a couple like 20, 30 years ago, you had people bringing crack into the hoods. A lot of people know this in the rap community and the black community about how, a lot of people allege that the government brought drugs into black communities and decimated their communities. And now you have a similar thing being done legally in America and illegally between fentanyl and opioids, where the same thing that happened to the black community in the 80s and 90s is now happening to rural white people and suburban white people and upper class white people. Fentanyl doesn't discriminate. So, this is something that we could get along on. Like, millions of our people are dying, black, white, millions over this. Thousands are being killed in these neighborhoods. Well, there's no political or social angle for the elites and the corporations to use, because they're not looking to help us. They're not looking to help your community or my community or your race or my race. They're looking to accomplish certain goals. And that's where I'm very sensitive with all this stuff. I don't support Russia. I don't want to fight a war in Ukraine. I'm not a Reddit user who wants to fly over there with an AK. I love America. I'm concerned about my country. We have neighborhoods that aren't even really safe for anyone to live in our own country, all over the country, that are considered war zones among many people. Issues here where you still have forced masking of children. You still have, in my opinion, the abuse of the working class, forcing them to do insane things that are dehumanizing, mentally, physically, psychologically abusive, economically, financially abusive for a lot of these communities. Our country's in shambles, in my opinion, socially. We're just one cell phone camera footage away from, major cities burning across the country. The next time there's a similar footage to what happened in 2020, I'm not convinced that every major liberal, city and inner city is going to just burn again, because people are going to get ticked off, and they were programmed by the mainstream media to think that their, anger and violence was righteous. So I see that happening again in this country. So I'm concerned about, and I don't agree with it at all. I'm just warning people. It's like, we're one cell phone footage going viral on Twitter away from, George Floyd riots part 2. So we got a lot of issues in our country to figure out, people to come together of all communities, figure out what would be right and, what people could agree on. So this idea that, I should be super concerned about what's going on over there, a little bit for sure. Ignorant, never. But I don't know. I am not buying this. I am seeing the same people who implemented this authoritarian Orwellian COVID regime on us, these same corporations, the same politicians, the same flop like a fish Republicans, the same flop like a fish Democrats, which are pretty much all of them, besides Tulsi Gabbard sometime. They're all in lockstep, just like they were with the COVID stuff. And what's happening with this, if you take your emotions away, they're banning and censoring more content. To be completely honest, I would tell you the truth if I did. I don't watch RT and I don't watch Sputnik. I'm talking like never. I never watch RT. I never watch Sputnik. I don't read it. It's Russian news. I just don't. If I did, I would tell you I just don't. However, the few times that I've seen it, I noticed that they carry certain narratives that left-wing media in America and even a lot of right-wing media won't cover. So they're covering stories that would normally get covered up. And same with Indian news. I said, India, for whatever reason, when I'm searching for these stories that I know are real, but they're hard to find in the press, I'm always looking for credibility, right? When I do my videos, I'm like, I don't just want to tell you what I think or tell you what, I want to prove it, right? I want to prove this. I know it's true, but I want to find like a pretty good source that's explaining it better than me, or explaining it in a more authoritative source. Anyway, India seems to be one that pops up, when there's crazy stuff going on with the vaccine or crazy, like that's real. I'm not talking about a fake conspiracy theory, like a real story that's inconvenient for Pfizer, Moderna, and all the, puppet media that just softballs them all the time. You can find it in India news, right? So I'm seeing, okay, what are major threats, even media-wise? The same way that they blame Joe Rogan, who's a super nice guy, just inconveniently has more power than them and actually lets both sides talk. I mean, Joe Rogan does a fantastic job of what the media should be doing. The same thing with Russia and India. So now they're blocking Russia. I mean, the next is going to be India. Within the next 3 or 4 years, there's going to be some real or overblown conflict between our allies in India, and they're going to do the same thing that they did with Russia Television and Sputnik to Indian news. And then you're going to have, who are they mad at in America? Tucker Carlson. Why? Because he's the only one or one of the only ones on Fox News who isn't a total puppet. So when something like this happens or a war in Iran happens and all the neocon and Zionist people that you think are on your side are like, yeah, kill them, and everyone's like, yeah, this sounds legit. Tucker's the only one who takes a step back and says, hey, I'm not pro-Iran, but I don't know about this narrative. That's why they're mad at Tucker Carlson. That's why they're mad at Joe Rogan. That's why they're mad, in my opinion, and not the only reason they're mad at Russia. That would be a lie. But, that seems to be, well, let's kill two birds with one stone. They're going to invade. We're going to take them off of here. And that's the consequence, I guess, you pay for, going against NATO and going against the EU or going against the UN. Just like in America, there's a consequence to pay if you support Trump. Get ready to be called a racist, sexist, xenophobic. Get ready to maybe be fired. Get ready to be lied about in the media. Get ready to go from dreaming like I was as a kid, being like, I want press, right? Like nobody knew who I was. I was rapping. I'm like, at a certain point, I'm like, I don't want to be broke forever. I think I'm better than the attention I'm getting. I was wondering, I'm like, man, why isn't the Daily Beast covering me? And I mean, to be honest, I don't think my songs were that good at the time, and I don't think I deserved press. But as I started learning politics and as I started diving into the media side of it, I was like, oh, it's not just like some of these news outlets are just reporting. I mean, it's a whole system. It's like, it's a whole game of like, if you're Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton, well, it's Hillary's turn. So if you're Bernie, we're going to make it almost impossible for you to do anything. If you're Ron Paul and, you are not the neocon war hawk that they want in office, you're not going to even get on television. So I started to realize how the media worked. I'm like, oh, it's not like, I don't even want press anymore. Cause I'm like, and now when they email me, like you wouldn't believe how many people want me to be in documentaries. I turned down almost every one because I don't trust it. I'm like, I don't, I did this documentary. I'm sure you did, but like, I don't want more attention. They're like, oh, we can't pay you. And it's like, it's not like I'm a greedy, I just want money. I don't need more attention. I get recognized almost everywhere I go all the time. It's fine. I'm not mad at it. It's nice. People are nice to me, but I don't want more attention. Like if you're not paying me, or at least like I can trust you to some extent where I think it's going to be a good look. Oh, it's going to go on Netflix. I don't want to be on Netflix. I don't want more people to see me. I don't need more people eyes on me. I want to be left alone. But these people won't leave me alone. They won't leave the country alone. Lockdowns, mandates, like that. Like that's what I'm trying to stop. So overall, I see the angle they're using with all this stuff. I see how the media is working. And those same people, the same ones who started the war in Iraq, the same ones who started the war in Afghanistan, the same ones who started the war in Syria, the same ones who started the war in Libya, and the same ones who became the COVID authoritarian lockdown regime, they're all working in lockstep conveniently in this narrative that we need to make this conflict bigger. And I just want to say this to end. I believe anybody who dies on either side, Russia, Ukraine, I don't want it. These are not my countries. It's not my culture. I'm not going to lie and act like I love Ukraine or Russia like other. That's y'all thing. I'll analyze it. I wish you guys the best. I love both y'all, but it's not my thing. With that being said, I am starting to question, just like I did during the lockdown. You got pictures of dead bodies in China and body bags and thing. Were they real? I don't know. I mean, some of them seem to be a little overblown now that we understand what this virus is doing, or maybe it was bad, but like, they used fear and emotion to really get us to lock down and get us to do all this crazy stuff. And in hindsight, even John Hopkins admits that it probably wasn't worth it. So, with all this stuff, when Zelensky says we're being bombed, it's like, sheesh, I don't want him to be bombed. But I'm like, after you lied about the Snake Island story, I don't even know if I believe you, bro. Like I want to see footage. I want to see documentation. I want to know, because I'm not just going to trust what Russia says. Of course not. But you already proved you lied. So it's like, I mean, it's not a small lie to say, I'm going to read exactly what he said again. Defending the Zemini Island, all of our border guards died a heroic death. And then he followed it up with, but they have not surrendered. They will all be awarded posthumously the title of the hero of Ukraine. They're heroes. They didn't all die. According to new reports, none of them died. So that's like a big lie. That's not like a 1 death or 2 death lie. That's like a multi-dozen death lie. So, I want to know, like, how bad is it really there? I'm seeing report like, are people really just getting gunned down and stuff? Or is it like a minor conflict that is in one region that's bad, but it's not in the whole country? I don't know. It's kind of like Portland. When Antifa is doing something and there's a block, most of Portland's fine, actually. I don't even like Portland, but I'm just saying, or like Seattle or whatever, like the little anarcho-communist thing they try to do. It's like most of the city is filled with, trash and stuff now. But in general, it's like you can zone in on one block, zoom in, and act like the whole city's under fire when it's really just the Portland courthouse. People in Portland, like, it's actually not that bad. It's just like 20 degenerates stand outside the courthouse and throw fire at it. Is that good? No. But is the whole city under siege? Also no. It could be the same here. I don't really know. It sucks. And I'll just end on that note. I want to believe the media. I'm not looking to be edgy. Some people are like, oh, you always need a theory. No, I'm not going to like fall head first into something that's not honest, but I would love to trust these people. But once you lie once, I like to see you correct yourself. If I don't see that, then I really just don't trust anything you say. And on that note, everyone makes mistakes, but who is the media that's going to tell us the unbiased, authentic, raw truth? And I don't think there's very many, unfortunately. I think some people will just support Russia no matter what they do. I think most of the Western media will support Ukraine no matter what they do. And the amount of people who are able to pull themselves back and try to report it accurately is a very, very small amount. So I'm doing my best. That's kind of my breakdown of the two speeches without being, too gushy or negative over either of them. I see why they're both, liked leaders. And I'm embarrassed to have Joe Biden as president. Like Zelensky, Putin, whether you like them or not, they're good-spoken leaders. They presentable. I mean, it's embarrassing for our country. I mean, I'm more embarrassed that Joe Biden's our president than I am worried about other. It's like, what, who are we to run around? I mean, we elected this guy. Like Zelensky, way better than Biden. Putin, way better than Biden. For your country, like to speak and lead. I'm excited / nervous to watch the State of the Union speech later because I'm gonna do a reaction to that. It's like I would love for it to be good. I would love for him to just crush it, but I can I go into him being like, I hope he does something, and it's always like, you're gonna die if you're unvaccinated. And here's Jen Psaki to look like she just came up from hell, and it's just like, I'm like, this guy sucks. Not only is he a bad speaker, not only is he old, he stutters. Like if I had like an attribute, like skill, humor, like accuracy, like tone, context. Biden's like one. He's horrible at even if I didn't like what he's saying, like Putin or Zelensky, like that guy can speak. Zelensky could put on a show. Putin can deliver a speech. Joe Biden is a clown. So who are we? But I'm going to watch the speech. I'm praying that it's not just like a hour Pfizer Moderna sales pitch to tell everybody they're dying if they don't get injected every year. Because that's what the last speech I watched, I was like, dude, this guy sucks. And I immediately was thinking, like, I can't believe people watch this and actually believe this guy. Like, that's our president. That's supposed to be our leader. I don't care if you got 3 vaccines. I know people that got 3 vaccines. I have no ill will towards you. It's just like that guy is not even making an effort to unite us or make us feel good. He's literally just like spewing misinformation. Just like, I'm like, Joe Biden, you're 80. And if someone's 500 pounds, I'm sorry, they're not healthier than me. That's not how health works. It's not like I do whatever big pharma says and I'm a healthy boy. Like, no, that's part of the health equation is, supplements, dieting, medicine. Like, yeah, that's part of it. But the fact that you completely ignore the most important parts of health, like, and people believe you, it's just crazy to think that that's the guy that people chose. But I will be watching it. I will be responding. God bless you. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you heard it, if you see anything else, because I am trying to learn. I am trying to grow. I am trying to know more. It just sucks that most media sources cannot be trusted, and they're not even really trying to give me something to believe in. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times it's pretty subpar. Thank you guys. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. I will be back soon, and this might be my first podcast. I'm starting a podcast. I'll give you the name soon. I'm going to go every other podcast by myself with a guest, Why? Sometimes when I have a guest, I like to let them speak. I like to listen, and I know a lot of people like to hear me speak. So I like to hear myself speak too. But jokes aside, I figure sometimes like if I do all guests, it's like it could get somewhat boring, but I do think my guests will not be boring. I'm just saying it's like, oh, I want to hear what Anomaly thinks about Ukraine, not just like him interview somebody. So I'm going to do one interview myself. Really cool people, really exciting stuff. Podcast is coming out. The hats, I'm doing the images myself, so they'll be we have the pre-sale. I just got to figure out how to get the right image on the shop. That'll be up in a day or two. Telegram, stayintouchwithme.com, all that stuff, and the links. Appreciate y'all, and hopefully this is my most productive month ever. Thank you so much.